So first off, I just wanted to ask you, you were Kay
Yeah.
Sargent from HOK. You're the director of WorkPlace.
Yes.
I would really love to know, what do people know you for?
Being a provocateur, being a gadfly, maybe in my own office, maybe being a little bit of a pain in the ass. But I think we work with large clients that have large portfolios, and they don't like a lot of surprises. So we do a tremendous amount of thought leadership on not only what's happening today, but what is coming, and what do we see, and how do we help our clients get future ready. So I think, if anything, I think it's to help people get beyond just looking backwards and get them looking forward and reimagining what's possible.
Yeah, just reimagining the whole workplace and reimagining life. Like life is not going to be the same.
Well, we're not just designing, work anymore. It's really the whole entire experience. And I think we have a unique opportunity right now to rethink not just places, but how we work, and when we work, and where we work and what that's like.
So when you start working with a new client, what are you curious about? What information are you looking for from the outset? And what data sources do you use to frame your discovery process?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I tell our clients that at the end of the process, they're going to know more about design than they ever wanted to know.
Yeah.
And I'm going to know more about them than I probably ever wanted to know. But that's how we're going to make good decisions. And so we really approach it by helping our clients understand, where are we? What's happening? And we view our role as being truly advisors and helping them just kind of first get grounded and then see the path forward and help them determine, where do they want to be. So it's understanding what they do. It's understanding their organizational DNA. It's understanding their personas, their goals, their ESG initiatives, their pain points. All of that stuff, I think, is really, really critical for us to help them make better decisions about how to design the spaces that will help them be successful. Yeah,
most definitely. I love how you said you are advisors to create the path forward, because you really have to start by the foundation, right? You cannot go through the path without being at the starting point. So, and mostly I feel like people right now, they want to be at the middle part of that path.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because we recently kind of just had this discussion with a client about, you need to know where you are, and you need to know where you want to get to.
Yeah.
And right now, asking our clients where they want to get to is a challenge, because many of them don't even know where they are.
Yeah.
So we have to help them on both sides of that. And then once we know, where are we, where do you want to get to, then we can set the path. But I would also say a critical element in this is scenario planning. What if there's a roadblock? What if there's an event? What if something happens that makes us shift mid-course? And how can we help you be nimble and really responsive to what we know is going to happen, which is change?
Yeah, we can predict the future, which, I mean, I wish we could, but I think people don't want to be grounded in the fact that change is going to happen, and we have to kind of prepare for that. Nothing's ever going to be 100%. Nothing in life is going to be 100%, but in the way that people are approaching work, they want to make it 100%.
They do, and I think that's a notion that we got to get rid of. So somebody said something once, and it just honestly was really striking to me. They said, we've never lived in a time where things have evolved as quickly as they're evolving now.
It's true.
We will never again live in a time where they evolve as slowly. So things just keep changing. And I think what we have to help our clients do is understand the days of one and done, and then you let your space sit for 10 years and then you revisit it in 10 years is a recipe for failure. That we really need to create spaces that we can reassess, adjust, and be agile and responsive. Otherwise, your space becomes a weight.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want.
In a December 2022 article in Work Design magazine, you question whether hybrid work is driven by function, or is it a feature they are using to retain or attract talent?
Yeah, this was actually really an interesting conversation. One of our clients asked us this question, and it kind of said, that was interesting. And it just framed it in a really interesting way to me. And it was, is hybrid a feature of what you're doing. So for instance, I'm a hybrid worker because I travel all the time. I'm out and about. I'm not usually in an office. Regardless of anything else, it's just the nature of my job and what I need to do. But a feature is when maybe somebody used to go to the office 5 days a week, and that's kind of how they envision their role, but you're letting them work in a hybrid manner because you want to give them some benefits of maybe not having to come. So it's not a function, it's not required because of their job, but you're doing it as a benefit to them. Now, if it's required as part of your job, it's kind of a no-brainer. Doesn't mean that it's easier, but it's kind of a no-brainer. If it's a feature, it's a little bit harder. And we got to work that out. Because, I mean, people have been working in a hybrid manner in the function category for years.
What should companies be thinking about when looking to retain or implement a permanent hybrid workplace solution when it comes to function and feature?
Right. So we actually have 12 points, and I'm not going to name them all.
Okay, we're here all day, guys.
We're not going to do that. But I will say this. Hybrid is more of an operational model than a workplace solution. And I think our industry, the design industry, is being set up right now, and the real estate industry. People are coming to us and saying, I need you to create this amazing space that will make everybody want to be there. Right? I can create amazing spaces, but if you don't have the policies, the procedures, the culture, the HR, things in place that support that, it's not going to be really highly effective. Hybrid is also the hardest model to pull off. And if you think you can just change and just say, okay, you can work from home 1 or 2 days, that's our hybrid policy, you're wrong. You need to think about, how do you onboarding people? How are you retraining managers to manage by performance and not presence? What is required? How do you ensure that you don't have proximity bias or you're not creating silos? We've worked with a lot of companies that have had really successful remote and or hybrid programs that have gone off the rails, because if not done well, it can be the worst of both. Right? You can commute to an office to sit on Zoom calls all day and be like, why did I come here? Right? Or you could go to a place that actually has worse Wi-Fi than where you started. Or you could be going to a loud space when what you needed that day was a quiet space, and that's where you started your day. So I think there's a lot of things that still need to kind of be worked out, and it is not for the faint of heart.
100%, and I think that can really test people's personality levels too. And when you say like commuting all day just to sit in Zoom calls, like those employees, they're not going to be quiet about it, right? They're going to scream to the rooftops being like, my employer is making us go, and like that also puts a damper on just overall the brand recognition of the company. So it is so much more of a bigger problem than like, oh, people are not occupied in the space. It's an overall image thing as well.
And I think there's a major thing that everybody is just ignoring. Which are habits. And some really bad ones. If you're in the office and you won't go into a conference room with 5 of your colleagues who are on the same call as you, because I believe the real reason is you want to sit at your desk and multitask and not be in that space. That's a bad habit. If you're booking end-to-end calls without any time to process or think or move or, kind of just have that permeate into you, that's a bad habit. If you wake up at your house and you just are diving straight in and sitting in one place for 10-hour calls, that's a bad habit. We've gotten into a lot of really, really bad work habits, and most companies aren't really addressing that.
No. And for them to think like, oh yeah, we need to get the space as occupied as possible, and that's how we're going to change these habits. People are going to be happier for that, but it's way more than just like design. It's way more than just real estate, facilities, IT, HR. Like it's a whole organization, operational thing that you're talking about, and people just think like, yeah, we just got to make the space pretty. Don't get me wrong, that is
pretty space is always but that's not really all it's about. And I think another thing, a lot of our clients are saying, what is that amenity that's going to get everybody here? There are some great amenities that people should be thinking about. Quite frankly, they always should have been thinking about it. But now I think what they also need to realize is people is the number one amenity. If I create an amazing space but nobody's there, It's not great. It's like if you go to a restaurant and you're the only person in the restaurant, it's not a good experience.
So you also talk about human-centric spaces, which
Yeah.
we talked about earlier and which we love, and the importance of creating spaces that are enticing and high functioning. What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, I think fit to purpose. And I think the question today is, what is the purpose? So if you are bringing people in to gather, are you really creating amazing gathering spaces? And just a little side thing. The design community has got to break the habit of the largest rectangular table I can shove into a room with the maximum number of chairs in the tightest confinement I can, with windows on one side, a total glass wall on the other, and a little teeny screen at the end of the room, and call that a good conference room. That has sucked for 10 years and it sucks today. We really need to rethink that. That's not an enticing space. If people are coming in, and people are coming in to gather and to socialize, are you creating areas for people to truly do that? Are you also acknowledging that they need to also maybe process before they walk into a meeting, or process that information after the meeting, and they still need that heads down space? And that we now have kind of have a heightened sensitivity to sound because we've all been living in our own little private zones. And so we have to reacclimate a little bit.
What do you think is most important consideration for employers in this new hybrid and remote work era when thinking about attracting and retaining new talent and creating or maintaining good company culture?
Yeah, I think it's about tying it all together. Your policies and your procedures, your cultural and what that is and what you want it to be, your space, and ensuring that it's really truly fit for purpose, and understanding if you're coming in because you want to connect with the brand or the culture, you want to connect with others, and you want to be able to do your job, then making sure that we're really creating environments and a culture that supports all of those things.
When we are thinking about going back to the office, are our leaders going back to the office too?
No. That's a big issue and a big problem. And I think, number one, it comes off as incredibly hypocritical. Number two, if you're saying that people need to be in for that, having those leaders accessible is important. So we're having lots of conversations with our clients right now about, you really want to keep that C-suite isolated from everybody else, or can we create a front door and maybe a back door for those C-suites, or do we invite, create opportunities for them to be more integrated into the teams, have more visibility? I think that's important. And I also think it's important because we have 3 or 4 years of people that are new in the workplace who may never have had that kind of exposure. And even if I'm not meeting with you, you being there, I can see, how you're dealing with a client, or how you're dressing, or how you're presenting yourself, or your work patterns, or there's just all these things that I can learn from you, and vice versa. I can learn, how do I turn this on my phone? How do I use this program? Or what's the new idea that you have? Or how do we create something amazing that's going to be really future ready?
Exactly.
So I think we need to really understand that we need to create those opportunities for access.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And when you talk about the new age that are coming into the workforce, most of them are like, why am I even here? It is a ghost town. It feels eerie. I want to connect with my employees. I want to connect with my colleagues, because this is why I come here. This is why I work here.
It's interesting. They do want to. Maybe not 5 days a week. But they do value that opportunity to be together, because they have, they have a lot to learn. They have a lot to benefit from. They have a lot to offer, and they want to connect. And they kind of that revolution, right? And they want to feel like they're part of something bigger than just themselves.
Exactly, and that's really how you shape a person. So when we talk about human-centric, that's how a person shapes into who they are in the future. And having those leaders there is critical. So when you talk about those C-suite spaces, could you imagine just making it more like an open space where these people can really learn, and then it's easy access for them to get to that focus lounge where they can really breathe in and be like, okay, what did I just absorb? Think about the path flows. So when we look at the data, we see path flows, right? What is really working from space to space, and how can we elevate their experience through that? Because maybe if they're overwhelmed to see, that my meeting room is the next meeting, but I want to debrief 1 second.
Right.
But I don't want to walk all the way across like to the like 11th floor.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what we're seeing is we still believe in neighborhood-based choice environments where you have a sense of belonging, you have an area that's kind of for your team or your group, and it's kind of customized to you to some degree, so you're grounded, right? You have that home base, but you also have options and choices not only within that neighborhood, but also then within the facility itself where you can go to.
I feel like we answered this all in the other questions by just organic talk, but yeah, it's way more than design and real estate procedures. We gotta really focus on procedures.
Yeah, absolutely.
So question number 5, what are the 3 top things employers must incorporate into their RTO plans?
I think it is, again, they need to understand what is it that the people are coming in for and create the opportunities for them to benefit. Actually, probably the number 1 thing, quite frankly, is technology. I mean, if I'm coming into the office and the Wi-Fi is shoddy, or I can't get to certain things and I have better technology at home, that's a no-brainer. That is kind of the bare minimum. I think we often just kind of assume that it's going to be great, but it really isn't. And I think the auto industry right now is doing an amazing job of creating great experiences. And in the workplace, we really aren't leveraging technology nearly as much.
Yeah, why are we so behind?
Yeah, well, because people are crawling around under their desks trying to figure it out. But there is a reason we're behind. And I think, quite frankly, technology is not cheap. And nobody wants to get it wrong. And it's expensive, and there's so much that has come out, it's almost overwhelming. And so rather than making the wrong decision, people think that making no decision might actually be better. And I'm going to say, I don't think that's the case. I think that there's an education element that we have to do. Hence why Realcom, I think there's a great opportunity. How do real estate technology really come together, and what are those solutions, and what are the viable options? But I mean, you could walk around this show and just say it's overwhelming.
Yeah,
it's literally overwhelming. And the other thing is that it's changing so quickly. Companies are being bought, they're being merged, they're some of them aren't necessarily as tested, whatever. And so I think there's an apprehension to dive in because nobody wants to get it wrong.
Yeah, and I think also when you say learning, people need to be open to that learning too, right? They need to be open to come. This may be a little bit overwhelming, but we really need to nail down what are we gonna do? Let's put that aside that it's totally overwhelming. We really need to be open.
Yeah, and just a little context. we're sitting in a booth on a show floor with 300 or 400 booths.
Yeah, I want to say 300 or 400 booths.
And of all types of exhibitors, of all types of solutions, whether it's smart building, parking tech, workplace sensors, any, information management, all of that stuff. It's overwhelming.
It is.
And I think that a lot of companies are kind of looking for what's the thing that's going to pull it all together, and right now there isn't a lot that pulls it all together.
Yeah, I was literally talking to someone the other day being a lot of buyers, owners, operators, they think there's a one-size-fits-all solution. There's one platform that's really gonna solve all this, but this is why we're all here. We all integrate together so nicely, and you need to be open to what in life really is a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah, not a lot, quite frankly. And I think that's part of the problem in the workplace. But one of our most successful clients who has created one of the most advanced spaces technologically and space operationally and design-wise, I think they have at least a dozen different types of software partners that are helping them manage, run, oversee, whether it's sensors and collecting data, whether it's different apps, whether it's booking systems, a dozen. And that's not for the faint of heart. I mean, literally anybody listening to this probably just went, I'm out. I'm done. I just want the one.
Yeah.
But there isn't that yet. And even if there is, I don't necessarily know if that's the right solution. So I think we just need to lean in to some of this. And I also think we need to be a little forgiving, right?
Yes.
The philosophy of doing nothing is better I think is broken. I think people need to realize that we have to give people better experiences, and so we need to dive in a little bit.
Yeah, we say bad data is worse than no data.
I would actually say that, people, equal opportunity, people say we don't have enough data.
Yeah.
And that might be true for some companies, they really don't. Other companies have way too much data and they don't even know what to do with it. And once companies who say we need more data get it, they're like, now what do I do with this, right? You need to understand, what is your goal? What are you trying to do? Because if you're collecting data that you have no intention of leveraging, you're wasting your time. And if you're trying to identify utilization, or you're trying to decide the patterns of individuals, or what their preferences are, or how we manage things, or what spaces need to be clean. What is the question? What is the problem you're trying to solve?
And then get that specific data for your use case.
Yes.
But then people are just thinking like, I just need to know how many people are coming in, and I know what I'm going to solve.
Yeah, or, right now, I think most people are using it before the pandemic and before return to office, was mostly for environmental conditions.
Yes.
Right? What is the temperature? How much energy are we using? How are we controlling the light? It was all of that. And it's a very business and building centric experience. But what are we doing to manage the employee experience?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the next frontier that a lot of companies are already doing and doing it pretty well. But I think a lot of companies aren't. And they need to embrace that to really help understand and expedite and make it easier for their employees to be successful.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. So last question. Where should companies start when embarking on a workplace redesign project? And what data do they need to inform the project at the outset? And what questions should they be asking? I mean, we kind of went over that, but in a nutshell.
Yeah, there's a long list.
Yeah.
Number one, I think get a workplace strategist, or someone who really understands the dynamics at play. Get people who really understand the technology solutions, probably a different person, who really understands how technology can be part of that solution right now. And then really understanding, get your lines of business, get a cross-section of your population, get different individuals and different perspectives in that room to truly help suss out, what are we trying to achieve here, what are our goals, what's important to us. And again, it can cover work styles, demographics, your environmental, social, and governance issues, diversity, equity, and inclusion. All of those things can be impacted by the way we deliver space, when, where, how, all of that stuff. So, and I think it's HR, IT, and corporate real estate coming together, truly coming together, to create solutions that are much more holistic.
Yeah, most definitely. I really hope this really opens people's eyes, because we got to move forward.
Going back isn't the thing. I will tell you, one of the things one of my pet peeves right now is when people are like, help me future-proof. And I always say, you don't want to future-proof. I want the future to come. The opposite would not be good for any of us.
Yeah.
But what you want to do is be future-ready. And I think what companies need to do is not be afraid to make a decision, but also make sure you are doing scenario planning, so that if something changes, then you're ready to pivot. And there is no, okay, this is the path that we're going on and we're going to stick to it, no matter what. You got to have those scenarios about, what if we need to bring everybody back? What if we can't? What if there's another pandemic? What if there's something that prevents people from going outside, like what just happened in New York. There's lots of things that are going to happen, and we need to think about, how do we pivot for any and all of this.